the truth about my divorce story. Question here is it okay to divorce? When is it okay to divorce, and when do you know it's time to actually let go? I know this is very controversial. I mean, we all have different ideologies and perceptions about marriage. It's been romanticized, of course, based on religion and culture. But the question is, when is it time to let go? Is it even okay to talk about it? We're going to dive right in. Definitely, before I even get to that, I have to talk about my own divorce situation, my beliefs about it, and when I knew that it was time to let go. Lifewithruzhoff, once again, leave a subscription there, comment, let me know what you think about this topic, and let's discuss. Personally, when I got married, or even when I thought about getting married, I thought it was for a lifetime. I thought it was for forever. I mean, like every girl, I won't say every girl, but most of us, when you get married, your intentions are to stay with this person forever if you married for love. And for me, being the hopeful romantic I am, I don't like using the word hopeless romantic, I totally, absolutely believed that my partner and I were going to be forever married and spend the rest of our lives together. And I never for a moment even envisioned myself getting divorced. I mean, I'd never even had divorce in my family. Like, my parents have been married for ages, and I thought, you know, when you're in love and everything is working out perfectly, I couldn't see any reason why we would even ever think about divorce. But like I said, this topic is very controversial, and for a long time I've wanted to open up about this, about my own divorce story, about is it even okay to talk about divorce, and when it's okay to actually consider divorce, filing for divorce. Because I'll start by saying, culturally, religiously, most people are, bound in chains because of these beliefs, and of course the way society judges you. Personally, when I got divorced, of course I had to go through the same. Like, it wasn't really harsh because I really didn't care what others thought, but I also had that kind of feedback. I had even family members ask me, why don't you try? Why don't you give him a second chance? But of course none of them knew the details. I personally believe, or basing on my own story, by the time someone decides to divorce, they've tried everything, No one just wants to give up their family, especially if their children evolved. And for me, I knew it was time. I mean, there was nothing more to try for. And of course it hurts. And if you're not sure about your decision, it can be very detrimental, especially if someone is maybe coming from a toxic relationship. So we as a society, we as a people, we as friends and family, we have to be very, very careful what kind of statements we make when someone decides to file for divorce or confide in us what they're planning. I think the best thing would be asking questions. How do you feel about that? Since when do you have this idea? So that the person maybe can open up if they want to, but also never force it, or never ever tell them to, like, you can't do that, because it can really be fatal at times, depending on why they're leaving their marriage. So, talking of when do you know it's time to let go? For me, I personally believe when you reach a point where you realize you're not happy anymore, you're unfulfilled, and much as we say your partner is not responsible for your happiness, it's also very important to know that a relationship, a marriage can only work out if both of you are happy in this union. But if you reach a point where you're like, why am I even doing this? A point where you're not excited to see your partner, a point where you start to resent your partner, then it's time to let go. Because it makes no sense, really. Staying with someone every day and you're resenting them, and maybe you're feeling unfulfilled due to particular reasons that I'll dive in later. That's one of the reasons, for example, to consider either divorce. But I always say, before you consider divorce, talk about it with your partner. It depends on what kind of relationship you have, and then you could find a solution depending on the reason why you're unhappy and unfulfilled. there are many ways. You can try counseling, you can try talking to friends and family, but of course there are some issues that are unsolvable, that are inevitable. If your partner is unfaithful, if your partner is toxic and abusive, there's really nothing much you can do apart from thinking of what to do next. Another point would be for me, if you're definitely, that actually should be number one, if you're in a toxic or abusive relationship. And with toxic or abusive, I mean mental, physical, verbal, that's all abuse. If your partner is really doing any of the three things to you, verbally abusing you, mentally abusing you, you know, making you feel worthless, or physically abusing you, then I would definitely say get out of there. Like yesterday, don't even take too much time to think about it. Of course you need to get prepared, but get out of there. And of course, if you're in a such situation, it's very important to talk. It's very important to look for help. So if you have a close friend or family that you really trust, you can talk to them about it, or try to get professional help. Personally, going back again to my divorce, I'm not someone that really gets to talk much about their personal things, which is the maybe fortunate and unfortunate bit of being an introvert. I'm someone who likes solving things by myself, taking time to think about it. Of course, had I been in a situation that required professional help, I definitely would have got professional help. But lucky enough, it wasn't a situation where I was like, oh my God, now I'm going to die. No. So by the time I divorced, actually my family members and friends and neighbors and everyone was surprised, because everyone thought, everything is perfect. But it can also be otherwise, that you're really living under torture, under abuse, and your life is in danger. Then definitely you get a divorce. I don't see any compromise there. There's even no need for counseling or going to your religious leader, and that's unfortunately the mistake most people make, knowingly or unknowingly. Of course, because of also societal and religious beliefs, that I see that a lot in our African community. When a woman is being beaten, that they're being told, talk about that with your pastor. And then you go to the pastor. I've really had that a lot, and he will tell you, you're supposed to obey your husband. Did you give him a reason to beat you? And I'm like, oh, holy moly, like really? So don't let that hold you into chains. Or counseling, there's no amount of counseling that will ever change an abuser. And it's not your responsibility to change them. They can only change if they want to. But as far as I know, as a social worker, as far as I know, according to my profession, you can never change an abuser through counseling or through prayers. That's a lost cause. So the only option actually is for you to live. And that is like yesterday, like I said. Not forgetting, I have my piece of paper here so I don't miss out anything. Very definitely, if there are children involved. Now I'm really going to talk expansively about this, because that was also my situation. I had 2 kids when I got divorced. When there are children involved, you're no longer deciding for yourself, but you're also deciding for 2 lovely children, whatever amount of children you have. When you're making this decision, you have to ask yourself, is this the best decision for my children? How will I go about it that it doesn't damage or leave long-term damage on my children? But also, most important, before I even actually go there, is to know, does this divorce help me and the kids in any way? Now, fast forward, most people stay in very terrible marriages and relationships because for the children, because I don't want my children to grow up with their father, because what will society say, because how will my children take that? Now let me tell you, your children are only happy if you're happy. If the parents are unhappy with each other, if the parents are always fighting and bickering and they resent each other and they hate each other, your children are not going to be happy. And I know some people think, you can hide that from the children. You only get to fight with each other when the children are not watching. The children know that. They feel the energy. And as a mom and social worker, I can absolutely assure you that by staying in a terrible marriage, toxic, abusive, or not working marriage is more damaging to your kids than a divorce. And why do I say that? It is possible to divorce if you're someone who's worried about your kids growing up with their father. It is possible to divorce and the children still have a relationship with their dad or mom. And that's what we call co-parenting. I'll do another video about that. I know it's not always easy and it's not applicable to all situations, but in situations where it's applicable, it's possible to divorce and the children can still have a healthy relationship with both parents. I'll talk about that at the end, just briefly. And of course, in situations where the children unfortunately can't have a relationship with the other parent, then it's always the best solution. We're talking about highly toxic parents that wouldn't even shy away from abusing their own children. You know, it could be that you're in a marriage where the partner abuses your children. I see that every day through my field of work. So in such a situation, actually the children are better off without their mom or their dad, depending on who the abuser is. And you're protecting your children than leaving them in a marriage, in a family that is very damaging to them. It's hard, but it's possible. Like I said, don't let societal expectations, religious, cultural, family expectations bind you in chains. It's very possible, and especially for us people with the African background or people from the third world, where there's always been the mentality of you stay in marriage whatever the case. Yeah, in the past, or most people in third world countries, the women stay in marriages because they are financially dependent. So basically staying in a marriage is their own way of survival. But today most of us have the chance, the possibility of making things work. And I'm not saying that because I live in the first world, because I'm in Germany and I'm working and all that. I know it's possible. Back to my story, I was a full-time mom. I wasn't working. Of course, I was educated, degrees, everything had it, but I was a full-time mom. So when I decided to divorce, I didn't have a job. I wasn't financially like really endowed that I had reserves of money to start from. But I can assure you it's possible to start. You must have the will and the desire to make it work and provide for yourself and for your children. And speaking of that, for anyone living in Europe or any first world country, we have a social service system. You can always get help. If you're living in Germany, that's just a word, but it's applicable to all European countries. For example, you can always apply for social help and you'll get supported in every way possible. You'll have your rent paid and everything until you can get back on your feet. And you'll also get the support to even get onto the job market. So that's also a very beneficial and positive thing. If you're living in a country or in a situation where there's no social service system support, then you can fall back to relatives, to parents, if you do have them that are able to help, or friends. Or if it's not working, then you have to make out a plan where you, for example, start looking for a job, you know, while you're still married, so that you have a plan how you can start. If you're in an abusive marriage, which is most of the time the case, the abusive partner doesn't want you to work. They don't want you to have this financial independence. It could be difficult. So maybe if you find someone who can lend you money to start, then it would be helpful. And that's why I say it's tough. I know it's not easy for everyone, but I always say if nothing else works, you just have to jump into the cold water. It's better than staying in a relationship where you lose your life and maybe even lose your children. So that's very, very vital, especially if children are involved. And once you divorce or decide to divorce and you have children involved, it's very, very crucial to never talk ill of the other parent, of the other partner, be it the dad, be it the mom. Because honestly, no matter how evil the other parent is, children love both parents. Of course, in some circumstances, it's hard love, especially if the parents are abusive toward the children. I've seen that too. But unfortunately, I think God made it out that way. The way we're supposed to love our parents, we're supposed to look up to them, you know, until to a certain age where you can work out things and get to understand them. So it would be very detrimental for you to talk ill of the other parent, even if he's very evil or she's very evil. I would advise you not to talk ill about this parent. Give the children time to grow, to get older. Maybe they're 18, and you can talk about maybe certain things. If he never supported you, if she never supported you, you can talk about certain things, but make sure not to create trauma in their heads. You know, not to make them feel like they were a burden to you. Or some parents even say, I sacrificed my entire life for you. That would be the wrong thing to do, because your children might in the end even resent you. So try to really try to leave it as harmonious as possible. Some words just fly away because I'm used to speaking German. And believe you me, if the other partner is really not a good person, the children know that. You don't have to, like, complicate it. And by making the other partner or talking ill about them, it makes it hard for the kids, because you give them the impression they have to choose between the two, and that's not fair, because the children didn't choose to be in this ridiculous relationship, to be born in this marriage. So you really have to make it as smooth as possible for the children. Before we even end this, we would have to go back to the question, is it okay to divorce? Is it okay or even possible to start over? Yes, it is okay to divorce. Yes, it is possible to start over. It's tough, it's not going to be easy, but it's possible. So for me, what I would tell you today, and I'm speaking to some people that have been hitting my DM for the longest time. Like I told you, I do free consultations through my Instagram DM. Advise people, because I'm in this field of work, don't stay too long in a marriage that is not working. Sometimes it's even long overdue. Just get out of there. Seek help, like I said. Hit someone's DM, like some people hit my DM, who can advise you. Someone who can let you know maybe about the bureaucracies of how to go about a divorce, and work out a plan. Always have a plan. Don't talk about it. Don't tell your partner every time I'm going to divorce you, because maybe if it's a toxic relationship, you might end up losing your life. Or if you threaten your partner that you're going to leave them, they could make it even more difficult for you to leave the relationship. Actually, I should also talk about this. In most cases, if someone is in an abusive relationship and there are children involved, the other partner always uses the kids to blackmail the other partner that wants to leave the union, So I've had situations, for example, of people asking me my DM, I want to divorce this person, but he's threatening to take away my kids, to make me lose custody. I am someone who advocates for shared custody, because like I said, children need both parents. So in situations where it's possible, where it's harmonious, I advocate for shared custody for the sake of the children. But like I said, an abusive partner might try to tarnish your name, might try to use the children's services, what we call, for example, Jugendamt here in Germany, to make you lose custody for your children. And in cases of a mother or father, that's the worst thing you can do to a loving parent, because they want to be there for the children. They want to do the best for their children. And then they'll get stuck in this terrible marriage because they don't want to lose their children. So like I said, don't threaten your partner, don't talk about it, just make your plan. And when everything is ready, just do it. Just do it, okay? So it's possible to start again. It will be hard. For some people it will be easy. Everyone has their different story. But for me, my take from today is it's okay to let go. It's okay to start again. It's okay to divorce someone. And I can assure you the children will survive that. The children will be okay as long as you try to make that as harmonious as possible. Don't engage into unnecessary fights. Life is too short for that. Because I know some people want to divorce and because they're angry, which I can understand sometimes, and they'll be like, I'll make him suffer or I'll make her suffer. It's not necessary. Life is too short. So for anyone who is going through such a situation, who is at that point in their lives where they're not sure, is it okay to let go, but maybe they're bound by the chains of society, of religion, of family, just break them. It's your life. You have one life, and the best thing you can do is living it well. Thank you so much for watching this far. Kindly subscribe, share the video with anyone that might want to see it, and my Instagram DM is always open under the name Ruzhoff, actually all my social media handles. And now we're going to be diving into part 2, because I'm going to be doing a series of this, and part 2 is going to be how to go through a divorce. Until next time, I love you. Mwah.